Hello, welcome to the New Stack Makers, a podcast where we talk about at-scale application development, deployment, and management.
This week we're in Austin, Texas for the South by Southwest Festival. Specifically, we're at the Capital One House at Anto's. And all week we're going to be recording podcasts with some of the brightest tech visionaries that are attending this event. We're outside of the Marriott during South by Southwest. Wei and Vinit, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
These two gentlemen recently just finished a South by Southwest talk on why engineers, even good engineers, suck at getting a product out the door. And we're interested in finding out a bit more about that. But first, if you both could introduce yourselves and the companies you're from.
Excellent. Hey guys, my name is Vinit Patil. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Skue. So Skue is a wholesale platform for professional makers to sell their products and also get feedback on what kind of products the market wants from retailers. So this is our second time at South by Southwest, and we just finished our panel. We talked about engineering from my experience at the company, building the product from scratch, and it's built in a new language, in a new technology, and it involved a lot of engineering processes. And in that entire process, we got to understand what are some of the problems that we faced from an engineering point of view and how we can get better. And that was the whole. That was the kind of the background for how we came up with this idea for this panel.
Excellent. And Wei.
Hey, my name is Wei, and I am the founder and CEO of Kineviz, a data visualization company. We bring interactivity and vibrance into the data visualization. So a little bit of my background. I'm trained a physicist. Actually, I have a PhD in physics and a computer science master, and spent 10 years in semiconductor industry. Start as application engineer to product research engineer scientist, and then later on led and developed the product in semiconductor. It's mostly software side the product. And last few years, I started a company called Kineviz, as I just mentioned before. And so all those years of experience in making and building product, working as an engineer and also working as a product manager, and interfacing with marketing people, interface with the customer, and gained a lot of insight and experience in the pitfalls and the problems exist in the engineer development process. So in the today's talk, we kind of share with people our experience and see what we can do to overcome those obstacles and allow engineer to be better in making great products.
Nice. All right. Fantastic. So every engineer I know has a great idea, but they rarely seem to get beyond the alpha stage. And what's up with that? Why you got this great idea? What's the additional challenge in actually making it useful to other people?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is knowing where to start. And a lot of that comes with the engineering mindset of trying to solve for everything when you just need to solve for one little problem. As problem solvers, engineers they're kind of tuned.
Right.
I come from an engineering background, although I'm more in the marketing side now, but I have the engineering background. I'm a trained engineer, and that's the kind of mindset I realized that I was getting into in my engineering years. So when you start and with an idea, you're always trying to think about how is this going to solve every single problem around this particular idea that I have, and that creates kind of like this paralysis, this analysis paralysis.
Sure.
And you never get to your alpha.
So it's a perfection sort of thing. It's like I want every detail.
Yeah, exactly.
I think from idea to product is long way, and the things that engineers not comfortable about doing will hold back them from actually building the product that deserve to be made, if it deserves. So not necessary. Once you have an idea, you need to figure out whether actually the problem exists, whether there's like a market ready for your solution.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that you need to figure out how can you work with other people and actually bring the idea into a product. And that itself requires a lot of iterations, a lot of validation of idea. I don't believe any single idea can start from the beginning and become a product. And the idea needs to go through a lot of iteration. You're probably going to pivot a few times to figure out what's the right direction to go, what's the right fit to go. And that requires much more than engineer making ideas.
So it's not, well, I guess the best way to develop a product is to start with the need first, but this doesn't always happen, or there, people come up with ideas for things that otherwise, it's not quite the same mismatch. It's not the exact match to the need, is what I'm hearing.
That's true. Although I could argue that a lot of great discoveries in the history come from a few passionate people. They don't care about whether they will be success or not. They just want to make their passion, work on their passion, and then often come with a great discovery. Like in the physics, the Newton physics law. The discover people have no intention of making money from it.
Yeah.
Right, but down the road, now the problem is of course is like it became successful financially hundreds of years after it gets developed.
It didn't do Newton much good now.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah.
You had talked about what are some of the ways to get around this kind of perfectionism?
Well, first of all, let go of the technology.
All right.
Let go of the technology. There's a problem that needs to get solved. You want to build a simple e-commerce platform, let's say. It doesn't matter, the user doesn't care what technology you're using, right? All the user cares about is, can I buy something, and let's say your idea is more people buy, the price drops, or whatever that is.
Right.
Is that going to work? And that doesn't really, the user doesn't really care, or the product doesn't really care if you're using Node.js or PHP or whatever right from the get-go.
Right.
So pick something, make it so that you can quickly validate, and that's where a lot of the engineers get stuck. It's like, I want to start this new project, and I'm really stuck on what should I start with. There's so many options out there. I'm going to go on these forums, and I'm going to try to figure out like exactly what's going to be perfect for this particular small little alpha thing that I'm going to build, and that creates a lot of.
I think it's called minimum viable product in the industry. It's just, you get just the basics down, just to see where it stands.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if you figure out what your minimum viable product is, how do you build it becomes a question of what technology should be used to build it, and that creates like, getting to the minimum viable product creates like a much longer timeline. So let go of the technology. That's what I
think we need to touch upon a very important point that we have been discussing is as engineer, we often create a problem-centric approach or technology-centric approach. That's like, okay, what is the problem, or what is the technology we have? But in actual life, we call our interaction. Can we define interaction as a problem? Like if we define this talk as a problem, that will force this conversation into a very specific angle. Actually creates a problem. So we think it's very important to have a human-centric approach, rather than start with what's the problem or what's the technology we can use. Think more about human experience. How human naturally interact with each other, interact with the thing you're making.
Excellent. Now, something we're all about scalability, and one of the things I'm kind of curious about when you're putting together I guess the alpha version of your product, do you have to think a lot about the technology decisions, or I mean, something will run better on C++, but it's harder to code with C++ versus Ruby, which doesn't scale quite as well. Is this something that somebody beginning should necessarily worry about, or is it like all the beginning code's going to get pushed aside anyway?
Yeah, the thing with scalability, it's always a great problem to have, right? Man, if you can scale, if you're going to scale to
We hit
those
that
millions,
problem,
millions of people, you're going to get millions of dollars of funding, and you can always solve that. But I think that's one of the reasons, that's one of the scalability is one of those factors that gets in the way of thinking, okay, how can I build this for 100 people? Building it for 100 people is simple. Just pick up any kind of database, pick up a simple language, and think about how do I get to my first 100 users, and not have to worry about scalability. Leave that later. Leave that for later, because you can always add, and Wei can talk to that because he's like the scalability expert. He can totally talk to that.
So actually, I want to expand on this. It's not just scalability is a problem, can cause a problem. It's also in general of the mentality of optimization. If it's not done right, will become a problem. So what it does is when you think about your scalability or think about optimizing for certain things, you already define your problem. Now you're still in the process of building an MVP. You still don't really know where's the exact direction you're gonna go, which turns you're gonna make. You already, for example, you already make a sports car, and you suddenly realize you have to drive on a dirt road. You have a big problem. And
Or traffic.
Traffic, right? If
Bay
you
Area traffic.
refit a sports car to drive on dirt road, and it might take so much more effort. Then you better have to. You may have to scrap everything you have developed. So that to me is a big problem. Is as engineer we often we often has the illusion of that we already know the problem. We already know what needs to be built. So we just try to build it. We try to build as good as possible. And the reality is, when you're trying to build things as good as possible, you always have to come down to the limitations. When you define something as a cup, you remove something as a plate or as a bowl. So the process of this, thinking scalability is a critical thing you have to implement up front, or thinking any kind of optimization you need to implement up front is exactly confine you from making your product flexible and to deal with uncertain market space. So we talked about that. We think it's really crucial not to optimize prematurely. So you leave yourself room to discover what's actually needed, what actually works before you optimize.
Premature optimization is the root of all evil.
Absolutely. Scalability is a big one. Yeah.
That should be on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
So now, do you guys address the issue of bringing on additional people? I mean, I would imagine you got a good idea. You want to get more people involved in engineering and also marketing and all sorts of aspects you may not be strong with. But I guess too many people and you start to diffuse the original goal. Do you guys have any thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, too many people, they do start to diffuse the goal because you're starting with one problem, and their certain problem has a certain vision or a certain market problem that you're trying to solve. And when you add too many people early on, it just creates too many voices, and which is okay when you're trying to expand the market, because that's when you do need more voices. But when you're trying to solve that first problem, adding too many people is going to be counterproductive.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that happen firsthand.
It's very often adding one more people, the product actually not be able to deliver early, but later, because you have actually a communication. There's
Manage more people.
With more people. So, and also once you compartment-size the people, when you create departments, then you have a sales department, have marketing department, has engineering department. Now you have to deal with the tension among all those departments. So expanding is a very rocky road to walk, but at some point, without expanding, without scaling, why do you ever start your business? So I think Vinit nailed it. You need to keep a small and agile team to validate your business idea, to find the core. What is the core of it? And then treat like scaling and treat like enlarging your organization size as one of the very risky problem you need to address.
Yeah, so just to elaborate on how we're going about it, we're doing everything ourselves. It's a small team doing everything we can by ourselves. But we're writing down all the different things that we're doing. We're breaking it down. Even if it comes to outreach, how are we getting new users? We are breaking that down to these are the 10 things that we're doing. If it comes down to engineering, if you're releasing a new version once a month, these are the 10 new things that we're adding to the features, or these are the things that we're tweaking the features.
Right.
And so that helps us break down, okay, here in this block, we are tapped out. So we need someone, we need to bring someone in.
Right.
And that helps us kind of understand all the different parts of the organization, B, where we really need help, or a place where, you know, we're just gonna keep throwing money at, because
Spinning your wheels,
a lot of that stuff, even when it comes down to the marketing part, you can start to codify, like these are the 10 things that we need to do, and almost like script that into a place where, okay, if I hire a new person, this is something that you would need to do at the basic level that we've been doing so far. Now this would be your job, now just expand on it. You know,
So it's not just merely an aggravation, it's something you can systematically attack and manage.
I
Exactly,
see
yeah.
the different approach in small company and large company. The small company needs to be agile, needs to be efficient, needs to be everybody be able to talk to each other. A large company, if you still have this kind of thing, imagine you have 1,000 people company or even 10,000 people company, that creates a lot of overhead and problems. So as company become bigger, you need the process. But if you impose process too early on, that creates limitation, holds you back.
Nice. Fantastic. So you guys had a packed session at South by Southwest. What did you guys have time for Q&A?
We did have, we didn't have a lot of time, but we did have some time for...
Any interesting questions or thoughts that came up that kind of made you think about things?
Yeah, there were people who were, you know, we brought up the idea of Java versus JavaScript, and that did tick off a few people. So
Yeah.
there was like an interesting question that one guy asked about, you know, we were talking about classification, but classifying too early, you know, we're talking about we're addressing the entire engineering community.
Yeah.
Whereas engineering communities are different. You can break them down into all kinds of different classes.
Yeah.
And so how do you address each of those different classes? Do you do it separately? And you had a good response that you know, be careful what you ask for, because you know, if you start to classify all the different engineers and start to put them in different buckets, then you're creating more problems for yourself.
Yeah. So
versus
what happens is we're conducting a game to just convey the idea about, you know, first it's difficult to classify, and second, if you classify too early, it creates problem for later. And right after that, there's an engineer just like trying to classify the engineer process, and then he left the need to have a matrix. So my response was, yes, of course you need to have a matrix. If you don't have matrix, you cannot optimize. But you have to be very careful with the consequence of your matrix. I think Uber is a good example.
How so?
Uber lately been hit with a lot of negative, what do you call the
Press?
press,
Yeah,
but it's very much related to the single focus on
That guy
the
has
growth.
single focus.
Yes, so he has this matrix, and he what is the word? He adhere to his matrix
He does.
very strongly.
He's a visionary.
He
yeah.
very
Yeah.
laser sharp this matrix and create this company culture that creates a lot of problem. So this is a good example of be very careful with how you classify things, how you design your metrics.
Nice, nice. All right, fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to talk.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Cool. Yeah,
It's
thanks
been
for
a
having
pleasure.
us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
This week we're in Austin, Texas for the South by Southwest Festival. Specifically, we're at the Capital One House at Anto's. And all week we're going to be recording podcasts with some of the brightest tech visionaries that are attending this event.